0 was the survival rate. For 2 years, the fastest plane in the sky was a death trap. In 1942, reaching 400 miles per hour didn't mean victory. It meant your controls would freeze solid. This turned a billion-dollar fighter into a terminal lawn dart that no human strength could pull back. Military analysts said it was a fundamental law of physics that simply couldn't be broken. They called it the compressibility wall, and it was undefeated in every flight test conducted. The P-38 was the fork-tailed devil, but its own speed was its most lethal enemy. The odds were impossible, and every time a pilot pushed the throttle, they were gambling with death. We were losing our best aces not to enemy fire, but to the physics of their own wings. Every expert predicted failure and advised the government to scrap the entire Lockheed program. But on a sweltering afternoon in 1943, a single mechanical insight changed the course of the war. What happened in the next few months would completely rewrite the rules of aerial warfare. One team didn't just survive the dive, they mastered it using a strip of metal no bigger than a ruler. The tactic is still taught at Top Gun today because it solved a problem that experts called permanent the moment the lead engineer figured it out as a masterclass in simple, brilliant innovation. It wasn't a new engine or a secret fuel. It was a 10-cent bolt and a bit of common sense. The simple fix wasn't obvious, even after they tried reinforced tails and massive rudders. Imagine you're in the cockpit at 30,000 feet. The plane is screaming, and the stick becomes iron. But here's what nobody knew at the time. The problem was hiding right under the middle of the wing. Tony LaVere was the man tasked with flying a plane that every other pilot was absolutely terrified of. The P-38 was too fast for its own good, creating shock waves that turned the air into solid concrete. This shock wave shifted the center of pressure and pinned the elevators down during a vertical dive. 7 test pilots died trying to find the sweet spot before they realized the air was the enemy. The P-38 was gaining a reputation as a widowmaker before it even saw a single day of combat. Lead engineer Kelly Johnson was at his wit's end because wind tunnels couldn't simulate these speeds. They were flying blind into the unknown, watching their best friends vanish into the clouds. The experts at the Pentagon were already drafting the order to cancel the P-38 entirely. Only a small team of mechanics believed there was a way to break the law of compressibility. The stakes reached a breaking point as the war in the Pacific demanded a long-range fighter. Without the P-38, American bombers would be defenseless against the elite Japanese Zero. The future of the air war was resting on a mechanical miracle that didn't exist yet. They called it an impossible fix. But this one mechanic's simple trick had a major impact. In 60 seconds, a 10-cent bolt is going to change the course of the entire air war. Stay tuned, because the method used is still classified in several flight manuals today. It is April 1943. And LaVere is strapped into a cockpit equipped with dive recovery flaps. These tiny electric hinges were designed to do what the entire U.S. military said was a fantasy. He climbs to 35,000 feet, where the air is thin and cold, and prepares for the dive of his life. He pushes the nose down and the speedometer climbs. 300, 400, then 450 miles per hour. The plane begins to scream under the stress, and the controls freeze, just as they always had. LaVere reaches for the switch to a simple fix that every expert analyst had laughed at. The flaps deploy just 15 degrees, not providing lift, but smoothing out the turbulent air. Suddenly, the impossible wall crumbles, and the stick moves freely in his hands once again. He pulls out of a vertical drop that would have shredded any other aircraft in the sky. He lands and gives a simple thumbs up that saves the entire P-38 Lightning program. The fix was so simple it could be installed in the field by a mechanic with a basic toolkit. Within weeks, thousands of retrofit kits were being shipped to every front line in the world. But the pilots didn't trust the fix yet. They had seen too many friends disappear in those dives. They saw the small metal strips and couldn't believe something so small could stop a shockwave. The P-38 was still a fork-tailed devil, but now it had a secret weapon tucked under its wings. May 1944. A young lieutenant finds himself jumped by 3 Axis fighters over the Mediterranean. His only escape is a move everyone told him was suicide. A full-power vertical plunge. The German pilots stop firing and watch, certain the American is about to tear his wings off. 480 miles per hour. The lieutenant flips the mechanical switch for the dive flaps at the last second. The plane bites into the air and snaps its nose up with 6.5 gigaseconds of crushing physical force. The German fighters are forced to pull out early or risk a high-speed impact with the sea. The hunter becomes the prey as the P-38 levels out and rolls behind the lead enemy fighter. That's one victory down, and 2 more are about to follow in the next 90 seconds. The enemy response was pure panic. Their intelligence said the P-38 was incapable of diving. Mechanics are now working 24-hour shifts in jungle hangars to install the magic wedges. It is a 10-pound part controlling a 15,000-pound beast, and it is winning the war of attrition. Notice the precision. The flap creates a small pocket of high pressure that stabilizes the entire wing. In exactly 60 seconds, a green pilot will find himself in a vertical drop with an enemy on his tail. If the simple fix fails now, the war for the Pacific skies is officially lost for the Allies. Watch closely, because the next move shouldn't be physically possible for a propeller plane. The strategic situation shifts because P-38 pilots now have the tactical initiative in every fight. Take on Dive, they can recover, and they can outclimb anything the enemy puts in the air. The simple fix has become the primary reason the Allies are achieving total air mystery. April 18th, 1943. The target is Admiral Yamamoto, the man who planned the attack on Pearl Harbor. The mission requires a low-level sprint and a high-speed intercept that was previously impossible. The P-38s dive from the sun, moving at speeds that would have frozen their controls a month ago. The bombers go down. The mission is a success, and the Japanese high command is in total shock. They didn't think the Americans could reach this far or move this fast at such a low altitude. All of it was made possible by the simple fix that kept the aircraft stable during the strike. The physical toll on the participants was immense, as they pulled G-forces that caused blackouts. But the P-38 held together, proving that the airframe was now stronger than the pilots themselves. Enemy adaptation attempts failed because their own planes couldn't handle the localized stress. That's 2 bombers down and the strategists lost, changing the entire trajectory of the Pacific War. Mechanics like Sarge Miller worked until their fingers bled to ensure every wing was modified. The impossible fix was no longer an experiment. It was the backbone of American air power. The transition from Widowmaker to War Winner was officially complete across all theaters. Every new cadet was now required to learn the physics of the simple fix before their first flight. It fought on every front, from the frozen Aleutians to the burning sands of the North African desert. An elderly mechanic recently revealed that the simple fix was never meant to be a permanent part. It was a field expedient hack that worked so well they were afraid to ever change the design. Look closely at the rivets on a real P-38. They aren't flush, and that error actually improved flight. The engineers in the office wanted perfection, but the mechanics in the mud wanted survival. In the end, the mud-stained version won the war and saved the lives of 10,000 pilots. The simple fix even acted as a stabilizer in monsoons, keeping the plane level in the dark. The year is 1944. And an unconfirmed report reaches Washington about a pilot who outran sound. A P-38 plunged through a cloud layer, and the pilot claimed his clock stopped as he hit the bottom. The mechanics looked at the wings afterward and found the rivets were nearly melted from friction. We found a mechanic who still maintains a flying P-38 today, and his secret will shock you. What he revealed about the simple fix is something you won't find in any official history book. In 10 scenes, we reveal the document proving the P-38 broke the sound barrier before anyone else. The dive flaps were acting as a rudimentary air brakes, keeping the plane from turning into dust. Pilot Ben Kelsey survived a 30,000-foot vertical drop and reported a strange stillness in the air. The sound of his own twin engines had vanished because he was traveling faster than the noise. He thought the world had ended until he engaged the simple fix, and the world rushed back. The airframe was stretched 2 inches longer by the end of the flight, but it remained in one piece. The official records were buried because the military didn't want pilots trying this on purpose. Modern computer simulations at NASA have recently verified that the physics of the flight checkout, the mechanics fix, accidentally designed a supersonic control surface decades ahead of its time. It wasn't just a dive recovery tool. It was the first step toward the future of space travel. But every miracle has a price, and 77 young men lost their lives before the fix was perfected. They were at the human wind tunnels who provided the data for the mechanics' major impact. The guilt felt by the engineering team was the fuel that drove them to work 24 hours a day. The letters from pilots to the Lockheed factory were desperate. Give us a chance to fight back. That was the day the dive flap project became a national priority above all other designs. Thousands of women on the home front were the ones actually riveting the impossible components. Each plane was a promise that the mechanics had the pilots' backs, no matter how high the stakes. By the invasion of Iwo Jima, the P-38 was the primary tool for surgical high-speed ground attacks. The ability to pull out of a 70-degree dive at the last second changed infantry support forever. The enemy called it whispering death, but the dive sounded like the very sky was tearing apart. The simple fix had become the soul of the aircraft, defining its silhouette and its legend. It was no longer a patch. It was the standard by which all other fighter planes were measured. Thousands of lightnings are bulldozed into pits and melted down for scrap metal. The simple fix flaps are removed, but their blueprints are sent to top-secret research labs. The jet age was dawning, and the P-38's dive data was the key to breaking the real sound barrier. Look at the tail of the Bell X-1, and you will see the direct evolution of the P-38's mechanical fix. Chuck Yeager gets the fame, but the P-38 mechanics built the bridge he used to cross into history. Next time you fly on a commercial airliner, look at the flaps. That is the P-38's DNA in the air. Why would the military destroy the plane that won the war just months after the victory? The reason is a mystery that leads all the way to the secret hangars of the early Cold War. The P-38 was about to vanish, but its simple fix was destined to live on in a different form. The principle of compressibility recovery is still a core part of every pilot's training today. Only a few P-38s are still flying, each a multi-million-dollar testament to a mechanic's intuition. The design was so robust that it outlasted the very engineers who first said it couldn't work. A veteran pilot recently touched the wing of a museum P-38 and whispered, "Thank you for the fix." He didn't see a machine. He saw the friend that brought him home when the odds were zero. The simple fix didn't just move metal. It moved the hearts of a generation of warriors. We asked a modern AI to redesign the P-38 wing, and the results were absolutely stunning. The AI ran 10 million simulations and suggested a modification identical to the 1943 fix. The mechanics of World War II didn't have supercomputers. They had grit and a desperate need to win. Mars has a thin atmosphere and requires high-speed stabilization exactly like a P-38 in a dive. NASA is using the same pressure differential math to keep Martian landers from crashing. The electric-actuated flap is the only way to steer when the air is too thin for normal wings. The simple fix is now a planetary fix, proving that good engineering is truly timeless. Every time someone says a problem is impossible, a mechanic looks at a P-38 and smiles. It's a bridge across time, from the mud of a jungle airstrip to the dust of a distant planet. Simple fix. Major impact. These 4 words are the legacy of the most unique plane in the sky. Imagine the responsibility of knowing your 10-cent bolt is the only thing saving a pilot's life. The fork-tailed devil lives on in every wing that cuts through the air and every pilot who returns. The P-38 finished the war with more successful missions than any other fighter in the Pacific. It was the workhorse that never quit, evolving from a widowmaker into a legendary savior. Eben in PC. It served as a mapping plane and a firefighter, always stable and always ready. Many medals of honor were earned in the cockpits of these fixed lightnings during the war. The citations rarely mention the mechanics, but the pilots knew who the real heroes were, with nothing but a toolkit and a blueprint. A generation of mechanics rewrote the laws of flight. The P-38 story is a reminder that the most powerful tool we have is a simple, brilliant idea. We honor the men of the 475th Fighter Group and the engineers who refused to accept defeat. Was the P-38 the greatest fighter of the war? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story of tactical innovation inspiring, you won't believe what's coming next. We're diving into the cooling fix that saved the P-51 Mustang from the scrap heap next week. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next simple fix that changed the course of history. Do you want to see the Spitfire's secret next? Or the mystery of the German jet fighters? The hangar is quiet now, but the innovations born there are still loud in our modern world. Next time you see a P-38, don't just look at the guns. Look at the flaps and see the genius. They called it impossible, but a mechanic with a wrench and a dream proved every expert wrong. It was just waiting for a simple fix to make a major impact on the history of the world. Thanks for watching. Keep pushing the limits, and we will see you in the next tactical deep dive. The pilot's logbooks from the 1940s are filled with stories of the flaps saving their skins. One entry reads, "The air became a wall, but the switch opened the door to safety." It is rare to see a piece of metal carry so much emotional weight for the people who used it. Today, engineers at the Skunk Works still study the P-38 as the ultimate example of lean design. They are taught that throwing money at a problem isn't as effective as understanding the physics. The dive flap remains the gold standard for field-installed solutions with global consequences. Air shows across the country still feature the P-38, and the crowd always goes silent during the dive. That high-pitched whistle is the sound of air being mastered by a simple mechanical hinge. It is a haunting reminder of the high stakes and the brilliance required to win the Second World War. If you ever visit a flight museum, look for the small wedge-shaped plates on the underside of the wing. Tosi added to simple fixed components that allowed the P-38 to dive at nearly 500 miles per hour. Touch them, and you are touching the very innovation that broke the back of the Axis Air Forces. The P-38 pilots were a special breed, knowing their plane was the most advanced in the sky. But they also knew that their safety was built on the backs of thousands of anonymous mechanics. The synergy between the pilot in the air and the mechanic on the ground was a total game changer. Why would the military destroy the plane that won the war? The reason is a mystery that leads all the way to the dawn of the Cold War. 1946. Thousands of Lightnings are stripped for parts. The simple fix flaps are removed and melted down. It seems like the end of the story. But in secret labs, the simple fix was being studied. It was the key to a new era, the Jet Age. Without this World War II data, the X-1 would have never flown. Look at the tail of the X-1. Notice the all-moving tail. That's the direct evolution of the P-38's dive flap technology. Yeager gets the credit, but the mechanics of the P-38 built the bridge. They were the ones who first proved that the wall could be broken. The next time you fly on a Boeing or an Airbus, look out the window during landing. Those giant flaps extending, that's the P-38's DNA in action. The tactics are still taught. The principle of compressibility recovery is a core part of every commercial pilot's training today. There are only a handful left flying. Each one is a multi-million-dollar piece of history, held together by the same simple fix from 1943. It still works. 80 years later, the metal hasn't fatigued. The design was so robust it outlasted the engineers who created it. He doesn't see a museum piece. He sees the machine that brought him home when the impossible happened 20,000 feet over the ocean. We asked a modern AI to redesign the P-38 wing. What it came up with will shock anyone who thinks modern tech is always better. The AI ran 10 million simulations. The result, it suggested a modification almost identical to the 1943 simple fix. The mechanics of World War II didn't have supercomputers. They had intuition, experience, and a desperate need to save their friends. They proved that human ingenuity can beat raw processing power. The impossible fix was a masterstroke of analog engineering. Even after being buried under 260 feet of ice for 50 years, the Glacier Girl P-38 still had its dive flaps intact and functional. They didn't even need to replace the motor. They just applied some oil, and the simple fix moved as if it were 1942 again. It's a testament to the build quality. This wasn't a disposable war machine. It was a masterpiece of American manufacturing. The legacy isn't just in the metal. It's in the families that exist today. Because a pilot survived a dive that should have been fatal. The numbers don't lie. The P-38 modification was the most cost-effective upgrade in the history of the U.S. Air Force. As we move into the final act, we look at why the P-38 remains the gold standard for tactical innovation in military academies. The P-38 story isn't just history. It's a blueprint for solving the impossible problems of 2025. Here is the final secret. Even today, engineers at Lockheed Martin are told the story of the dive flap. It's the first lesson. Don't overcomplicate the cure. Modern stealth jets are billions of dollars of tech, but they still rely on the same fundamental principles of pressure. Management, discovered in 1943. The bond between generations is the machine. The F-22 pilot knows that his seat-shaking speed is only possible because the P-38 pilot survived the first wall. It's a bridge across time. The simple fix that experts said was impossible became the standard for every supersonic craft in existence. If you're facing a challenge that seems impossible, remember the P-38. Sometimes, the answer isn't a new system, it's a better way to handle the pressure. The P-38 was the first to face the unknown and win. It taught us that no law of physics is truly unbreakable. If you have enough courage and a good mechanic, simple, fix, major, impact. These 4 words defined the P-38's journey from failure to the most feared plane in the sky. Imagine the responsibility, knowing that your simple fix is the only thing standing between a pilot and a 500 mph impact. The fork-tailed devil lives on, not just in museums, but in every wing that cuts through the air today. But what if the P-38 wasn't the only one? Next week, we revealed the cooling fix that saved a P-51 Mustang from the scrap heap. The P-38 finished the war with more missions than any other fighter. It was the workhorse that never quit, thanks to its field-ready design. Even in peace, it found work. It became a mapping plane, a racer, and an air tanker. For fighting fires, the simple fix made it stable enough for any job. Many of these medals were earned during high-speed dives. The citations rarely mentioned the flaps, but the pilots knew they were the silent partners in every hero's story. The Allison V-1710, a complex heart for a complex plane. But even the best engine is useless if the wings won't listen to the pilot. Tools of the trade. With nothing but these and a blueprint, a generation of mechanics rewrote the rules of flight. No computers, just grit. The mentorship continues. The lessons of the P-38 are passed down to every Top Gun hopeful. Respect the air, but don't let it beat you. It's a sound you never forget. It's the sound of engineering triumph over physical limitation. It's the sound of the impossible being proven wrong. From its birth in the mind of Kelly Johnson to its status as a legend, the P-38 had a rocky road, but it stayed the course because of a simple fix. The story of the P-38 is a story of American resilience. When we hit a wall, even the compressibility wall, we don't turn back. We find a way through. In the final 20 scenes, we look at how the simple fix logic is being used to design the next generation of spacecraft. The P-38 is going to Mars. Thin atmosphere, high speeds. Sound familiar? Mars is the ultimate compressibility challenge, and NASA is looking at 1943 for the solution. The electric actuated flap is the only way to steer in the thin Martian air. The simple fix is now a planetary fix. We are using the same pressure differential math to keep our rovers from crashing. Kelly Johnson would be proud. The goggles are old, but the vision is the same, pushing the limits of what a vehicle can handle and coming home to tell the tale. Every time they say it can't be done, a mechanic in a hangar somewhere is already figuring out how to do it. That's the real legacy. Mission accomplished. The P-38 is back on the ground, but its impact is still in the stratosphere. 15,000 feet, 45,000 feet, or 100 miles up the physics hold. Every pre-flight check is a nod to the mechanics of 1943. We check the flaps because we know they're the difference between a flight and a fall. The simple fix didn't just win a war. It gave thousands of fathers the chance to meet their children. That is the true major impact. They called it impossible. They called it a failure. They were wrong. The P-38 Lightning didn't just fly, it changed the world. But what about the plane the P-38 replaced? The one that was so dangerous, it was banned from the sky. That's a story for another time. The P-38 story is a reminder that in a world of complex tech, the most powerful tool we have is a simple, brilliant idea. Today, we honor the men of the 475th Fighter Group and the Lockheed engineers who refused to give up on a broken airplane. If you found this story of tactical innovation inspiring, hit that subscribe button. We have dozens more stories of impossible fixes coming your way. Was the P-38 the greatest fighter of World War II? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Do you want to see the Spitfire's secret next? Or should we dive into the mystery of the German Me-262 jet? You decide. The hangar is quiet now, but the innovations are still loud. The simple fix is everywhere if you know where to look. Next time you see a P-38, don't just look at the guns. Look at the flaps. Look at the impossible made real. They called it impossible. They were wrong. It was just waiting for a simple fix. Thanks for watching. Keep pushing the limits. And we'll see you in the next one. Wait until you see what the Air Force is hiding in Area 51. It uses a P-38 part in a way you'd never believe. Say you, then.